Former White House chief strategist Steve Bannon speaking out, revealing that Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell told President Trump to tone down his drain the swamp rhetoric during one of their very first meetings at Trump Tower. Bannon also hitting GOP leaders for trying to nullify President Trump's victory.
I think Mitch McConnell, and to a degree Paul Ryan, they do not want Donald Trump's populist, economic, nationalist agenda to be implemented. It's very obvious. It's obvious as night follows day.
For more on Bannon, the Trump agenda, the government response to Hurricane Irma, we're joined by Ed Rollins, who served in 3 presidential administrations, chief political advisor to the House Republican leadership, the dean himself, and Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist for the New York Post, Michael Goodwin, both Fox News contributors. Great to see you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Let's start with Steve Bannon, Ed. I mean, he's basically saying that this president has everything to be concerned about when it comes to McConnell and Ryan and their efforts to nullify his election.
I thoroughly enjoyed the interview. I'm a big Bannon fan, as you know, from having been on saying that many times. He took no basically backward steps, and I think to a certain extent, as I sat there thinking about it, I said, he may be on the outside now, but he's a guy I always want to be around, and I think the president got elected because of a lot of the influence that he had. He understands the game at this point.
Well, the president might remind everyone he was only there 3 months, for crying out loud.
Well, at the end of the day, this is a revolution. And the McConnells of the world and the Ryans of the world don't want a revolution. They want a status quo. They want more Republicans. But
hey, they're hired hands for the Chamber of Commerce, the Business Roundtable, and the GOP establishment. Are you kidding?
Those are your words, and
they are my words. That's why I uttered them.
And I would concur. But I just think he did a great job, and I think that for the first appearance on television, he gave a very clear image of where this administration needs to go. And
you agree?
Well, look, I think the topic that we caught a snippet of there was about economic nationalism, and I think that is Bannon. I think that for him is the issue for the Trump presidency, and I think he's also right that both parties are going to be forced to deal with this because of Trump's election. I mean, that's what Trump's election was about. Even the Democrats, if you want to be charitable, and I think Bannon mentioned it in
Let's
terms.
rule that out right
No,
here.
but I mean, that the Bernie Sanders people talking about trade deals just as Trump was. I mean, I think for the same reason, that they were hurting American workers. So I think there is a lot of common ground there, and I think Bannon is a leader, and I agree with that. I think he will be probably more effective on the outside now, having been on the inside, than he would have been having never gone into the government.
Well, that goes to another issue that's every bit as important, if not more so, and that is why has Gary Cohn, a left, he is at the very least a liberal, elitist, globalist. The same is true. I mean, you can go through a number of the people there in the White House who seem to be holding sway right now with the president's policies.
I've said again on this show, I'd like to see a show of hands someday who actually voted for the president. Those people that did get to stay, and there's 4 or 5 of those at the top didn't vote to him until probably after Inauguration Day, and Cohen's one of them. Cohen would have clearly gone into a Hillary administration, and several others would have. And the agenda that he wants is not exactly the same one that the president wants.
Yeah, Fred. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on his final name, but the Weekly Standard, Fred Barnes. Recently wrote that Cohen might have had the same job under a Clinton administration that he has under a Trump administration, which tells you something. That
the Weekly Standard that fought Donald Trump the whole way, which would be somewhat less animated against a left-wing president.
That's right. But I do think your point, and that's too, about Gary Cohn is right, that he is not really a Trump person. That doesn't mean, though, that he can't be an effective advocate in a Trump administration, because at the end of the day, the president makes the decisions.
He does, and he has, and he is living up to every one of his promises, moving the economy forward, prosecuting the fight against the Islamic State. I mean, the man is extraordinary, and what he has done here within 2 weeks, dealing with 2 major storms. You know that the left-wing media was just sitting there poised, waiting to attack him for failing to deal with the aftermath of these storms and those unfortunate victims of these storms. Instead, they are holding their tongues because he has been brilliant in his leadership in responding, as has his entire administration.
Every single day, as you watch these terrible tragedies that have gone on for the last week, 10 days, he was right there holding the wheel. Every governor said, I've just talked to the president, he's promised me whatever I need. And you really felt that he was in charge of what was going on from the federal element of it. And it was a high priority, and it wasn't a state issue. It was, we're going to do everything we can to help you. And that's a major step forward, I think.
Governor Greg Abbott in Texas, Governor Rick Scott in Florida, and nothing but the highest praise for the president, for the administration, its response in support. And it also says something about those two governors. I mean, they are remarkable partners for this administration, because they mean, they're well-meaning, they are working together, they're in sync philosophically, and energized in behalf of those Americans who need help right now.
Right. And look, this is a major moment for a president. I mean, he has been tested by North Korea, by others. He's now being
you said tested. He's being tested daily by
That's right. But, and now another one. And look, I think it is one of the things that the advantage, I think, of what we're seeing before us, Lou, even the deal last week with the Democrats. I think there's a normalizing now of President Trump for a lot of Americans. And I believe the temperature is going to be lowered with all of the rallies, the protests, the violence.
Because this president led a bipartisan moment.
Yes.
And it was at his insistence that no one claim a victory in that deal.
Yes.
In funding the government, in the continuing resolution, in the budgets, in the debt ceiling. And it is remarkable, because the Democrats kept their end of the deal, as did the Republicans and, of course, the White House. That is true leadership. We're watching presidential leadership, and it is holding sway over events now.
The best comment Bannon made last night, he said he himself was a street fighter. And he said, one of the reasons I like this president, he's a street fighter. He's a counterpuncher. But more than that, this is a president that can take a big punch and come right back at him. He's a tough guy.
Well, I would say it a little differently. This is a very bright man with tremendous energy, the likes of which we have never seen in the White House in certainly our lifetimes. It is a remarkable administration because it's focused on what it needs to do, and that is to restore primacy of the American middle class, the working man and woman and small business person, and put America first without any hesitation whatsoever.
Well, I think that's one of the beauties of this bipartisan moment, is that the president took his cue from ordinary Americans in Houston helping each other. And he said, basically, I want us to be the same here. And why should Washington, why should we be fighting each other while Americans are helping each other? I think that was a great vision of what the country should be.
And a vision they laid out from the moment he stepped into the arena on June 16th, 2015. Good. Ed Rollins.
Sir.
Good to see you, partner.
Thank you. Happy birthday to Mike.
Michael Goodwin, I would like to wish you, on behalf of Ed, myself, and all of America, happy birthday.
That's very kind. Thank you.
Thank you. President Trump says he's planning to visit Florida very soon following Hurricane Irma. Today, addressing his response to the vicious back-to-back storms that his administration has had to deal with.
These are storms of catastrophic severity, and we're marshaling the full resources of the federal government to help our fellow Americans in Florida, Alabama, Georgia, Texas, Louisiana, Tennessee, and all of those wonderful places and states in harm's way.
For more now on the president's response to the storms and the rest of the Trump agenda, we're joined tonight by Kellyanne Conway, counselor to President Trump. Kellyanne, great to have you with us.
Hi,
what an extraordinary 2 weeks it's been for America and for the people of Texas and primarily the state of Florida. The response by this administration has been extraordinary, and the national left-wing media has not hesitated to shower plaudits on all of you for the great response on behalf of Americans who are victims of these two massive storms, have they?
Well, some have resisted the temptation to give credit where it is due, but this is a president who has set the tone and the content in unifying the nation together in response to those survivors and unfortunately those who have lost their property and their memories and worse, their lives through these storms of Harvey and Irma. But this president made very clear, as recently as yesterday, Lou, in answer to a question by the press, that we're focused on lives and recovery, not on money right now, not on the shenanigans that Congress and the swamp usually like to play with matters like this. But it's been a real moment for all those who say that President always misses the opportunity to unify. No, he doesn't, and he certainly didn't here. But we're also very struck by the non-governmental response, the volunteers, the neighbors, the strangers, the friends, the not-for-profit operations that are really working overtime to help each other. And this president knows that the recovery and the rebuilding that's around the corner we cannot see. It could take months and years, certainly untold billions of dollars.
You know, I cannot think of a time in which any president has had better partners than Rick Scott and Greg Abbott, the governors of Florida and Texas.
Yes.
An extraordinary response on part of course, the Trump administration, Greg Abbott and his government, Rick Scott and his. And it has to be uplifting to those who have taken a gut shot here by these in dealing with these two storms, having to fight through it all. So that is a wonderful thing to watch and for all of America to see and experience. I want to turn to 9/11 and this somber, dispiriting anniversary. I know some can make it seem otherwise. For me, it remains an infuriating reminder of all that we haven't done in 16 years. The further sacrifice beyond the 3,000 lives we lost on September 11th and the war that's being carried out against radical Islamists. The president making it clear today that this planet, as he put it, no matter how large, there will be no sanctuary for those who intend this country and indeed Western civilization both harm and destruction.
You know, Lou, this is a president who won in large part because he is tough on terrorism and continues to be. Hillary Clinton at her convention last year referred to the terrorists as, quote, as not as terrorists, never used the word, said are, quote, determined enemies, as if we're playing a rugby match against them. Donald Trump has always been willing to call them who they are and call them out for whom they're trying to destroy. And he remains ever vigilant as commander-in-chief and as president. His first and foremost duty is to keep us all safe and secure. And that begins with keeping the terrorists out of this country and out of threatening Western civilization.
Yet today, Kellyanne, not a member of the administration referred to radical Islamists. They did not name the enemy. And this looks like, if to some, like further influence on the part of some within the administration, trying to go to the politically correct and the long war doctrine of David Petraeus, trying to engage on the sensibilities of the enemy that is vicious and barbaric and means nothing less than our destruction. Is this a time to be concerned that there has been a reversal on the part of the administration, that we will no longer name our enemies? This is a decision primarily coming from generals who couldn't win a war in 16 years in Afghanistan?
Don't read too much into that. I think today was really a solemn day of remembrance with a smaller footprint by the White House. Press and public engagement-wise. This is a day when President Trump and his first 9/11 as president, but obviously his 16th 9/11 as a private citizen, as we all are, commemorating the fallen and also calling out and remembering some true stories of American heroism and helping each other that we don't always see, that camaraderie. But this is a president who's made very clear his joint session speech earlier this year, many of the talks he's given recently, calling out the enemy for who they are, and most importantly, somebody's putting the action behind that. He believes that we should be a sovereign nation with borders. He wants that border wall constructed. He wants Congress to get to the task of paying for it, along with other big legislative priorities like tax reform, immigration reform, including enforcement and E-Verify and other measures, as you know. He spoke very loudly and clearly on DACA last week through his Attorney General and elsewise. And this is a president who also is willing to still repeal and replace Obamacare and start with infrastructure. We just need a Congress that's willing to do that. And we call on the Democrats across the aisle to join in. Some have been very complimentary of the president's leadership throughout these hurricanes. and the recovery efforts. But we also need them to do right by their constituents at home who deserve a tax break, who deserve the 29 million Americans who don't have any health care coverage, who were lied to by the past president. And we need a Congress to get serious about safety and security. If I read one more stupid story, Lou, about all the Democrats who are going to run in 2020, they're not even distinguished members in 2017. They haven't done anything in 2017. What are they going to run in 2020 on? So let's give the president the support he needs to keep us all safe and secure and prosperous.
Kellyanne, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Kellyanne Conway, counselor to the president. Kellyanne Conway.